Hello and welcome to Daybreak on A News. I'm James A. Zimoha. Let's see your headlines. The US steps up pressure on Iran with fresh strikes and a renewed naval blockade. The White House teleprompter operator has been suspended over alleged bets on Trump's speeches. And political turmoil in Kyiv as Zelenskyy appoints a new acting defense minister. The United States and Iran have exchanged a new round of attacks, deepening a week-long escalation that has put last month's truce under severe strain. Washington says the strikes are aimed at weakening Iran's military capabilities, while Tehran says it has retaliated against U.S. military assets in the region.
The United States has launched another wave of strikes against Iran, marking the sixth consecutive night of military action. U.S. Central Command said the latest operation began at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday and was aimed at further degrading Iranian military capabilities. The White House said the strikes followed what it described as Iran's violation of last month's Memorandum of Understanding, accusing Tehran of firing on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz.
The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences for that, and that's what we are witnessing right now.
Iranian media reports that U.S. strikes hit locations in the southern port city of Bandar Abbas, causing power outages and damaging a communications tower. At least 7 people were injured after a residential area was also hit. Iran responded by targeting U.S. bases and facilities in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said its naval and aerospace forces carried out joint missile and drone attacks, targeting radar systems, communication centers, command facilities, and military infrastructure. Iran also said it had downed an enemy MQ-9 drone over Khuzestan province. The renewed fire comes despite a US-Iranian Memorandum of Understanding signed in mid-June, under which both sides were expected to halt hostilities and begin negotiations towards a final agreement within 60 days. The White House says Iran is still communicating with Washington and wants to make a deal. The release of a US citizen detained since 2024 has also pointed to a possible diplomatic opening, even as the latest escalation brings the truce closer to collapse.
A 4-year truce between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis has collapsed. The Yemen-based group fired missiles at the kingdom after accusing Riyadh of bombing a key airport under their control. In a televised speech, the Houthi leader declared that any further escalation by Riyadh will trigger a direct military retaliation.
All Saudi oil facilities and vital installations are targets for our missiles and drones. If it gets itself involved in a full-scale aggression against our country and chooses escalation instead of respecting itself and lifting its blockade, the situation would be completely different. If it persists with the blockade and moves toward full-scale aggression, we will spare no effort in confronting it with everything we have and everything we will possess.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has detailed previously unreported allegations of Chinese meddling in U.S. elections in a primetime speech from the White House. His administration earlier said the speech would provide facts and evidence to show American elections are not as secure as previously thought. However, some Republicans fear the speech has weakened voter confidence and hurt the party's chances in November's midterm elections. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
Some startling claims from the US president during this Thursday night primetime address. Here's a man who has long claimed that the 2020 election was stolen from him, that it was rigged. Tonight he said that he provided evidence and facts to show that it had been stolen and rigged. That evidence has now been published on the White House website. He says that China managed to infiltrate the 2020 election and the run-up to it, and were able to influence the outcome. He claimed that China managed to steal about 2/3 of the US population's sensitive data. About 220 million Americans were compromised. But he also said that there was a tremendous cover-up by the US intelligence community not to bring these claims to light. Well, why make these claims now, just 4 months before those midterm elections in November that Republicans are already incredibly worried about? Well, really, this was not about the midterm elections. It was about trying to push through a key bit of legislation through Congress, the Save America Voter ID Act, something that's been stalled for many, many weeks and something that Donald Trump wants to be able to push through and enact. This would mean that voters out there across America would have to provide proof of citizenship and provide a photo ID to be able to vote. But some Democrats say there are many Americans who don't have photo ID. They don't have a passport, they don't have driver's license, and therefore this could suppress the vote in the future, in particular for voters who lean Democrat. But Donald Trump wants to push this through, and he was trying to convince Republicans in his own party to be able to do that, saying to them that this election security demanded that they now pass this act. But this could also have been the possibility that Donald Trump was laying the groundwork of trying to gain more control over elections. At the moment, according to the US Constitution, elections are run state by state officials. Donald Trump may want to try and gain some federal control over those elections. That's unclear, but what is worrying Republicans is that tonight's speech may backfire on the party just before the midterm elections. They've been cautioning the president to focus on kitchen table issues, things that are worrying Americans, like the cost of living, inflation, gasoline prices for motorists. Instead, the president chose to look to the past, to the 2020 election, rather than looking to the future, the 2026 midterm election and the 2028 presidential election. Republicans are worried that that may now hurt their party's chances in the coming months. Nick Harper for A News in Washington.
Now, a long-time White House teleprompter operator for US President Donald Trump has been placed on unpaid administrative leave. Federal regulators are investigating whether he engaged in insider trading. Gabriel Perez is accused of using advanced knowledge of Trump's speeches to place bets on the platform Kalshi. He is alleged to have made nearly $100,000. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Perez is cooperating with investigators. He has worked at the White House since 2016.
Are there any other White House staffers or people within the administration who are suspected of also placing bets on Kalshi or Polymarket or other things with some of this privileged information?
Not to my knowledge, not that I've been made aware of. And as you saw, I think this played out exactly how it should. Kalshi notified the CFTC of suspicious activity. They investigated that, identified the individual, and he will now no longer be working at the White House. So I think that answers all the questions on this matter. Reagan.
All right, after a short break, we'll discuss the rest of the global stories. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Daybreak. Now, Ukraine's security services have targeted Russia's shadow oil fleet, launching sea drone strikes against 2 sanctioned tankers in the Black Sea. Officials confirm the vessels used to bypass international sanctions sustained direct hits. The naval operation comes amid intense fighting as a Russian-guided bomb attack on the southern city of Zaporizhia killed at least 3 civilians and damaged residential areas. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan's foreign ministry says the body of Samad Nusrulayev, the Azerbaijani captain of the civilian merchant vessel Atlas Bay, has been found and brought to Odessa after the vessel was hit in a drone attack near the Ukrainian coast. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has nominated the acting head of the Security Service of Ukraine, Yevheny Kamara, to serve as the acting defense minister. Zelenskyy said Kamara's experience, including overseeing long-range strikes on Russia, can help drive reforms in the defense sector. The move follows the dismissal of Defense Minister Mikhail Fedorov, which triggered rare protests in Kyiv. Fedorov was credited with expanding Ukraine's drone capabilities and pushing defense reforms. Some are concerned his removal could weaken those efforts. Parliament must now approve Kamara's before he can formally take up the post. Now, the fight in Ukraine continues, but the war is entering another important phase. From stalled diplomacy to shifting military strategy, the conflict is evolving beyond the battlefield. Joining us now is our guest, Rudolf Mijovich, CEO, Christian Medical Association in Lviv, Ukraine. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you so much for asking.
Now, Ukraine has reshuffled its defense leadership. What message does that send?
Actually, it's a very disturbing message. Zelenskyy is trying to build his team, and one of the most faithful minister, Fedorov, was with him for the longest time, since 2019 first election. He changed a lot of the staff in his closest. We all remember more than 6 months ago, he lost the nearest advisor, Yermak Andrei. And it's changed trajectory of the whole government. And now he's questioning or decided to resign Fedorov from the Minister of Defense position because of conflict with Zelenskyy. Officially, he told that there's a problem with mobilization that Minister of Defense that couldn't handle, but yesterday, Fedorov gave a long 1-hour Q&A session, and obviously it was a conflict between Zelenskyy, main general in Ukraine, and Fedorov is unbearable, and the position was or Zelenskyy or Fedorov.
Now, are the protests in Ukrainian cities a sign that domestic patience is finally wearing thin?
Yeah, so this is a difference between us and Russia. When we don't like something, we're gonna tell it. And Zelenskyy saw all of those protests because those protests not for Fedorov. We hardly ever are going on a protest because of politicians, and especially when it's talks about government position. But Fedorov was unity in the idea that the war can be done by drones, the losses can be, and last 6 months shows that we can hit Russia. And that was a big part and responsibility of Fedorov, Minister of Defense. And actually, the Zelenskyy, it's his old general. He made a great success in the Kyiv defense operation, but still he's from older generation. And he not very much using drones technology as Fedorov has a vision for. So because this is a totally different visions how war has to be done, they had this conflict. So the people, when they are seeing the Zelenskyy and they will see the losses, they're afraid to join army and they're afraid to die. And when they see a Fedorov, when he tells us, like, we're gonna use drone, not people. So that army that we want to build. So we are standing on a protest not for Fedorov, but for idea that we can have a modern war with less human losses.
All right, now, what does the collapse of peace momentum between both countries tell us about both sides?
So I don't think that in any near future there's going to be a peace. It's a good point that we stop them. even more in the last 2 months is we gained their territory or come back our territory more. This is a close statistic that was published just a couple days ago because Russians can use it. But we can definitely see that, and it's like official, quite official information that Russia is going to announce mobilization after parliament's elections after September. So they don't plan to stop. So in any near future, and I think administration Zelenskyy accepted also that idea. There was some communication, maybe election is going to be done during the fall and etc. But it's obviously that the war will not stop this year and in any near future if we're not going to do something dramatically. So we see the last 6 months were effective. That's why we are targeting oil, more aircrafts, and other things that are decreasing Russian economy. But hope for the peace is not at this point.
Now, how much difference could renewed U.S. military support now make for Ukraine?
Great question. The most important from US right now, it's a Patriot systems, or better to say, PAC-3 rockets, anti-ballistic. So you saw the destructions that was done in Kiev in last months, weeks. We had a zero um, destroyed missiles ballistic from Russia. This is all because we are a huge lack of anti-ballistic rockets to Patriots. If we would have them, we would hit them. So we can see that drones hits are destroyed more than 95%. This is a great statistic. But with ballistic, we can't fight. Also, very important is intelligence. It's also was official that American intelligence information help us to hit Russian oil power stations much better. So I believe those two things. When we're talking about Abrams or other things, yes, they are needed, but with a new war, when we have hundreds and millions of drones, the need in the tanks and armored vehicles decreased dramatically.
So, Rudolph, do you think that the U.S. Could or would send those drones with the ongoing conflict with Iran?
This is a very good question because we definitely don't want to have a war in Iran because oil increasing and Russia getting more money that can use for their war machine. So when we're talking about, and also PAC-3 systems, rockets are bought by Middle East countries. So it's harder to get them to Ukraine. So definitely we don't, and also they are hitting shaheeds with, or how they call them, with those expensive rockets. So we don't want to, definitely the war in Iran would continue.
Now, why is it that the European Union is struggling so much to finalize its latest round of sanctions on Russia?
I think this is quite painful. They made a decision that by the 2027 they will cut the gas, oil, and all things, but still it will. They did not decide it. I think they hope that the war will be finished by that, and they will be able to come back to regular business. But the war is not finished, and now they have to make the decision finally to cut the oil, to get the gas, to not rely and depend on Russia. And we are afraid that a lot of the pro-Russians movements like AfD in Germany are rising up, and they are talking about populistic messages like gas will be cheaper, your life will be easier. But with this cheap gas, they are selling their freedom and their opportunity to have a good life. So Europe has to stand up and maybe have the hard times for citizens and have adult conversation but they have to stop the buy gas and oil from Russia.
Now, can joint drone production with Europe actually scale fast enough to change the battlefield dynamics?
Absolutely. This is also one of the victories of former Minister of Defense. Drone deals or joint ventures that trying to build right now. We can see that when we are taking money and engineering from Europe and Ukraine frontline technologies, speed of development, it's very good combination. And we need what we were losing from Russia is scale up of production. Right now, when we can, with the Europe support, we can increase to hundreds and thousands of those drones that we need different. We're not talking about only FPV that right now President Zelenskyy announced that we can produce 20 million FPV drones. We're talking about ground drones. We're talking about sea drones. So we need Europe in that. And also Europe has a good technology. They have engineers, professionals that can help. And if we're going to have this joint collaboration, Europe will also get the products and learn lessons from Ukraine war. And we're ready to share with it.
Now, speaking about joint cooperation, let's talk about the acceptance of Ukraine in the EU. How is that process going?
This is very hard because if we thought that only Orban in Hungary would resist, right now we see that Poland also has questions. Other countries that are afraid to lose some of their opportunities like farmers and etc. But we believe that because of our strong experience in the new war, Europe will not be able to exist without Ukraine. They need us as much we need them. So I believe that with negotiation with Poland, I think the Poland right now is quite big resistance because Poland is the heart of Europe logistic. If Ukraine join, we will decrease the prices for logistic, and basically we will take the market of logistic in Poland. The same with agriculture, wheat, honey. A lot of Polish farmers have a low price and they're selling in Germany, in France, their products, and they're afraid of Ukrainian products that also good quality, but cheaper price.
That was Rudolf Mijovich, CEO of Christian Medical Association, joining us from Lviv, Ukraine. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Good conversation.
Now, Slovakia's President Peter Pellegrini says Bratislava will act as Baku's advocate inside the European Union. Speaking during a high-profile visit to Shusha, Pellegrini met with President Ilham Aliyev, securing key agreements on energy and defense.
Shusha has played host to a strategic shift in relations. Slovak President Peter Pellegrini's high-profile talks with President Ilham Aliyev have solidified a new partnership, with joint defense initiatives already taking center stage.
We prefer in Slovakia to deal with each other as a partners. That means, for example, there is cooperation in defense industry. And we were very concrete today that our Minister of Defense is looking for a joint project, some new military equipment, which will be produced by both Slovaks and Azerbaijani companies, and which can after that enter new markets through Azerbaijan. Yeah. And the benefit will go to both of us.
Bratislava is backing Garabag's rebuilding phase through smart village projects while securing alternative energy routes. In Brussels, Slovakia promises to protect Azerbaijan's strategic interests.
Slovakia has a style that we respect our partners. We don't comment. And so I think we will be, how to say it, maybe like an advocate of Azerbaijan among the European countries in a positive way. And of course, where some support is needed or some decision of the EU should be taken and it is somehow connected to Azerbaijan, of course you can count on us.
This mutual trust is expected to yield practical benefits for citizens of both nations. With direct flights between Baku and Bratislava launching this October, the strategic partnership is shifting from official agreements to direct physical connections.
Now, tensions between Washington and Brasilia have escalated sharply following the U.S. imposition of 25% tariffs. Brazil's Foreign Minister, Mauro Vieira, has condemned the move as a unilateral action with no justification. Vieira also launched a direct diplomatic attack on U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, calling his recent comments regarding the trade dispute entirely unacceptable. Speaking in Brasilia, the Foreign Minister made it clear that Brazil will not back down under U.S. pressure.
Section 301 investigations are unilateral actions by the US government, and there is no justification for imposing tariffs on Brazilian products. In this regard, the statements made by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, posted early this morning on social media regarding the tariffs imposed on Brazil, are unacceptable and offensive to the Brazilian people and the Brazilian government. What bothers the US government is the fact that Brazil has not yielded to the excessive claims and unreasonable demands made during the negotiations.
Turning now to Greece, where a worsening water crisis is hitting the Aegean Islands as summer tourism peaks. Authorities on several islands have declared drought emergencies, forcing them to prioritize tap water for visitors over irrigation for local farmers.
From above, Astypalaia looks like a postcard of Aegean beauty. But on the ground, the reality is bone dry. 71-year-old Evdokia Palacianou walks through a withered orchard. In April, officials cut off her water to prioritize the peak tourist season. Today, her citrus trees are dead and her fields are empty.
You should see what we had here. Mandarins, oranges, plums. Now nothing. If it does not rain, I am not planting anything.
Evdokia's struggle is shared across 7 Greek islands declaring drought emergencies. Here, the sole reservoir sits at just a sixth of its capacity, leaving barely 5 months of water. As the summer population swells from 1,400 to 7,000, the existing desalination infrastructure has been overwhelmed. To keep taps running, officials have blocked agricultural irrigation and deployed expensive temporary backup systems, leaving farmers scrambling to carry brackish water just to keep their livestock alive.
If we collected all the water dropped throughout the year in a bucket, it would be just 2.5 centimeters deep. A major worry for me is what will happen if there is no rain once again this year.
With scientific models warning that climate change will severely worsen water scarcity here by 2049, locals are turning to creative conservation. Some hotels now offer guests €5 vouchers to skip daily room cleaning to save both water and energy. Athens has pledged €15 million for emergency infrastructure across the Aegean, but for islands like Astypalaia, financial aid cannot buy rain.
Now in Spain, over 400 people have been evacuated from 5 municipalities as a major wildfire rages in the Aragon region. The blaze, centered near Oris, has scorched over 4,500 hectares and damaged at least 10 homes. Authorities have declared a level 2 emergency, warning that erratic winds continue to drive the flames. Around 400 firefighters are battling what officials call a highly complex active front. Over in Africa, 11 people, including children, have been killed in a fire at an orphanage in Algeria. 19 others were injured in the blaze near the capital, Algiers. The fire broke out at the orphanage in the Mohammedia district early Thursday as residents and emergency crews rushed to the scene. 10 of the injured suffered burns, while 5 people with disabilities were evacuated to safety. Authorities have not released details about the victims or the cause of the fire. The Algerian president expressed his condolences following the tragedy. Now, Colombia's Navy has seized more than 3 tons of cocaine from a speedboat off the country's Caribbean coast. Authorities said 5 suspects were arrested while attempting to transport the drugs to Central America. The seized cargo is valued at more than $120 million. It was confirmed to be cocaine following laboratory testing. Now to a quick break. When we return, we'll take a look at the key regional stories. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Now, Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov is in Moscow for talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov, with regional dynamics shifting. Today's discussions could help shape the next phase of Azerbaijan-Russia ties. Joining us now is Elmira Talibzadeh, political analyst based in Baku. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, why does this visit matter more than a routine diplomatic meeting?
Thank you for your brilliant question. You know, this meeting taking place in a very crisis period of our bilateral relations during the previous several months, or even the previous 2 years. Our bilateral relations has faced a very deep crisis between two sides. But however, this meeting and aim of two sides shows the respect to each other, first of all, and the aim to prevent stability in our region of the South Caucasus. For Azerbaijan, it's important because it's like it remains as a part of our multi-vector policy, foreign policy. For Russia, it's even more significant and important because Azerbaijan linking Europe, linking China, and it's also linking and remaining as a main part of a north-south corridor that linking Russia to Iran, to Persian Gulf, and also to the India. And for example, for Russia, it's even more important than for Azerbaijan because Azerbaijan and its foreign policy to all actors in our region which interests are crossing, for example, it's European Union, it's United States, even China now, because China lost some mechanism of its influence in Georgia, but it's other stuff. But however, this is more important for Russia. And I guess there will be 3 main agendas. First of all, I want to talk about transport corridors, I want to talk about the economy, and of course, its security in our region.
Before you go ahead to talk about those, what message or messages are both governments trying to send through these talks?
The main message is that we're able to have healthy dialogue between two sides. We're not keen and we're not shaped on our crisis and even on the tragedy of crashing Azal aircraft in 25 of December 2024. We're trying to make it clear that we're the 2 neighborhood countries, we're crossing the border 340 kilometers. We have important and most significant trade agreements, documents between two countries. And at least it's a geopolitical and geographical location of Azerbaijan, historical location of 2 countries. We can go to the other place from each other. So we want to share that our main and most important aim is to have more pragmatic relations with Russia, not friendly. Maybe it's a neighborhood relations, and our relations will not be the same as they were before the 25th of December. But the most important that we want to show that our main goal is to have a pragmatic relations with all of our neighbors, with Russia, with Turkey, with Georgia, with Iran, and even now with Armenia, of course.
Now, in your opinion, which issues are likely to dominate behind closed doors?
I guess the main issue will be security, regional security, because both for Russia and for Azerbaijan, most important point is to have stability, stability in strategy and security in the region. Neither of the countries want new conflict to take a part in our region, because I guess also Azerbaijan and Russia, when we're talking not about the region, of South Caucasus. When we're talking about a more large region, for example, somebody calls this a larger, bigger Middle East, somebody calls this bigger Central Asia, because Azerbaijan also participates in the Central Asia foreign policy in the format of C5 that becomes C6. So I guess the main point that will be dominating a meeting and discussion between two countries is the regional stability and the economic, because Azerbaijan in trade with Russia exceeded the number of 4.8 billion United States dollars in trade, so it's a very important number for us, and that's why Russia became the main trade partner for Azerbaijan. And the third agenda that I want to highlight is the agenda of transport routes, because as I said before, Azerbaijan not only linking Europe to Central Asia and China, but also linking Russia to most important strategy partners for Russia, because Russia a little bit like isolated from our main corridors now, and Azerbaijan helping Russia in this point. So.
Now, how important is rebuilding confidence for both sides right now?
I guess, as I said, for Russia it's even more important, because Azerbaijan, with this multi-vector policy, gained not only trust between the international actors of international relations, but with its closest ally, with the most important actors, like the big actors, as I said, United States, European Union, even China. But it's important for Russia because it's like isolated now. Russia lost its mechanism in Armenia after the elections in Armenia, after the victory of Nikol Pashinyan. Russia lost its mechanisms of influence in Georgia, because we see some kind of Euro integration process that is continuing in Georgia. So Russia is not that powerful in Georgia now, that it wants to be like take part in some processes in our region, but it will never be the same that it was, for example, 20 or 30 years ago.
Now let me ask you this, how closely are these talks linked to the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process?
Thank you for your question. I guess in bilateral relation and in the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan, without the agreement of any of this country, Russia will not be able to take any part. Not only Russia, we can talk about also European Union, United States, some other member states of the European Union, or some Asian states, because these two dialogue, when we're talking about the dialogue, it means two sides trying to speak with each other. So I guess there will not be any place for any third actor, because we experienced the mediatory factor of three states. It was in the Minsk group when we talked about Russia, when we talked about France and United States. It wasn't useful, but anyway, it was a good experience. At least we know they are not able and they are not capable to take a part in this true bilateral peace process between two countries. We can do it, and we will be able in the future to have a dialogue in the diplomatic area after the signing of a peace agreement between Yerevan and Baku. So there is no place for any third actor without acceptance, without approval of any of the sides.
That was Elmira Talibzadeh, political analyst, joining us from Baku. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time too.
Now, Kazakhstan and China have signed more than 70 agreements worth over $15 billion, deepening cooperation in technology, transport, investment and industry. Fariza Kalmaziner has more.
More than 70 commercial agreements valued at over $15 billion have been signed during Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's walking visit to China. The agreements cover technology, investment, transport and industrial cooperation. Speaking to executives from China's leading companies in Shanghai, Tokayev said Kazakhstan is entering what he described as a new golden 30 years of cooperation with China. Economic ties between the two countries continue to grow. Bilateral trade reached a record $49 billion last year, while Chinese investment in Kazakhstan has exceeded $30 billion. More than 8,500 companies with Chinese capital are now operating in the country. Tokayev said Kazakhstan is looking beyond attracting investment with a focus on joint technology development, research centers, advanced manufacturing, and building a skilled workforce to support the knowledge-based economy. He also invited Chinese companies to take part in projects involving artificial intelligence, data centers, digital logistics, and smart cities. Another focus is the digitalization of transport corridors linking China and Europe. Around 85% of rail freight between China and Europe pass through Kazakhstan, while the country has invested more than $35 billion in transport infrastructure. Tokayev said the next step is to speed up cross-border trade through digital technologies. One of the initiatives is the smart cargo platform designed to integrate customs, logistics, and commercial services into a single digital system. Cooperation on critical minerals was also on the agenda. Kazakhstan says it wants to work with international partners not only on mining strategic minerals, but also on expanding domestic processing to create higher value-added industries. Tokayev's visit continues on July 17th with the World Artificial Intelligence Conference in Shanghai, where international cooperation on AI will be one of the main topics. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Now, Russia is considering new digital tracking rules for long-term foreign residents, raising fresh concerns for millions of Central Asian migrant workers. Severa Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Russia may soon require foreign nationals staying in the country for work or other long-term purposes to purchase a mobile phone equipped with a special electronic profile. According to Deputy Interior Minister Igor Zubov, the device would allow authorities to monitor people's movements, track changes in their places of residence, and send automatic reminders when visas, work permits, or other documents are about to expire. The proposal builds on a pilot program already operating in Moscow and the Moscow region. Since September last year, labor migrants from Uzbekistan and 8 other visa-free countries have been required to install the Amina mobile application, which shares geological data with Russia's Interior Ministry. According to the ministry, more than 139,000 foreign nationals have already been removed from the migration register after failing to transmit location data for more than 3 working days. The measure could have significant implications for Central Asia, whose citizens make up the largest share of Russia's migrant workforce. According to Russia's border service, 3.12 million entries into Russia were made by Uzbek citizens in 2025, followed by 1.44 million from Tajikistan and 983,000 from Kyrgyzstan. Kazakhstan recorded the highest overall number of entries at 3.2 million, although many were for short-term travel rather than labor migration. In recent years, Russia has tightened migration controls through expanded digital registration systems and strict enforcement measures as the country continues to rely on foreign workforce to address labor shortages in sectors such as construction, logistics, and manufacturing. The latest proposal would further expand the country's use of digital technologies in the migration management if approved by lawmakers. It is Severa Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Now, Turkey is renewing its push for Russia-Ukraine peace talks with Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Kiev to discuss mediation, Black Sea security, and future guarantees. Adam Orhan reports from Istanbul.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is in Kiev for high-level talks aimed at reviving diplomatic efforts to end the Russia-Ukraine war, while strengthening bilateral ties and security cooperation. Fidan has held talks with his Ukrainian counterpart, Andrei Sabiha, with the two ministers discussing the stalled peace process, Black Sea security, and Turkey's continuing role as a potential mediator between Moscow and Kiev. Speaking at a joint press conference, Fidan called for the continuation of the Turkey-mediated Istanbul negotiation process and said Ankara would continue its diplomatic efforts to bring the two sides back to the negotiating table.
Frankly, we do not want the war to spread to the Black Sea. It is essential to preserve peace in the Black Sea. Targeting ports, tankers and fishing boats there and putting civilians' lives at risk is not something that can be excused. In this regard, we once again emphasize here that all parties must act with common sense and responsibility.
Zabiha, for his part, said Turkey could serve as a venue for a potential meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Kiev says it remains ready for a ceasefire and believes direct talks at the leaders' level could provide fresh momentum towards ending the conflict. Fidan's visit comes as Turkey seeks to build on its unique position as a NATO member that maintains working relations with both Ukraine and Russia. Ankara has hosted several rounds of direct negotiations between the two sides and helped broker the Black Sea grain deal, while continuing to voice support for Ukraine's territorial integrity. Black Sea security is also expected to feature prominently in Fidan's wider discussions with senior Ukrainian officials. The visit comes amid continuing international efforts to establish a framework for future security guarantees for Ukraine and prevent further escalation of the conflict. Fidan's scheduled program also includes a meeting with President Zelenskyy, as well as talks with other top Ukrainian officials and representatives of the Crimean Tatar community. The visit underscores Ankara's continuing effort to position itself as a central diplomatic player in any future negotiations aimed at bringing Europe's prolonged war to an end. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Now, an air quality alert has been declared in New York City just days before the World Cup final. Thick haze from Canadian wildfires is drifting across the region, raising pollution concerns for Sunday's highly anticipated match between Argentina and Spain in New Jersey. Forecasters are expecting weekend rain to clear the skies before 82,000 fans pack the stadium for the historic clash. Now, Spain and Argentina will meet in the 2026 World Cup final on Sunday at New York, New Jersey Stadium after defeating France and England in the semifinals. Spain are aiming to win their second World Cup title, while defending champions Argentina are chasing back-to-back triumphs. If that happens, it'll be the first time since Brazil achieved that feat in 1962. The final also features a unique coaching story. Argentina's Lionel Scaloni faces Spain's Luis de la Fuente, who taught him during his UEFA Pro coaching course in 2017. Before Sunday's showpiece, however, France and England will contest the third-place playoff in Miami on Saturday. All right, that's all for us from now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.